This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Engel here with the TGI Sports Talk College Football Huddle. How's everybody doing tonight? We are 10 days, 10, count them, days from live college football action. Time is getting exciting. Welcome, everybody, tonight, watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Everybody who will see us tomorrow and Friday at 11:30 on Roku. The show will be replayed. And, we're going to start looking, guys, at some of the group of 6 conferences tonight. Some of the news around college football, obviously. We'll look at some of the group of 6 conferences and give some predictions and thoughts about them, as we did with the Power 5 conferences last week and the independents. We'll have Lary Sorensen on with us at 7:30-ish to talk about the Wake Forest situation, Sam Hartman's injury, what it looks like replacing Sam Hartman for the short term, hopefully, and how Wake Forest's summer has kind of progressed and some of the improvements they're looking for on the defensive side of the football. So we'll talk with Lary Sorensen at 7:30-ish. We certainly want to get you and your comments and your topics in today too. Well, as I said, we'll go around, look at some of the news here for a little bit, take your comments, and then we'll probably have Lary in. We'll go through some of the previews of the less major conferences and maybe look at some coaches on the hot seat. And again, follow up with your topics and comments. So feel free to jump in at any point in time. As always, you guys drive the show. This is your show, I like to say. So please feel free. Couple things to take a look at here tonight. I want to look at some of the news and notes around the world of college football as we get started. Well, we'll swing around college football in a second, but we're going to look at some news and notes. There's some interesting stories that have been coming down here recently, the last few days. We looked last week at the coaches poll, pretty much backing that up. You've got the same 4 basically in the most recently announced AP poll. Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson, just like we saw in the coaches poll last week, are the top 4 teams. We'll look at it quickly. Who we got in here? John DeLong, good evening. YouTube chat is ignored now. I don't know what you mean. If I ignored something, John, I apologize. I certainly don't do that. And if I've been missing you, I apologize. But if it's something else, please let me know. We don't ignore anyone. So good evening to you anyway, John. Haven't seen you in a few weeks. And with the SEC getting ready to kick off their season with everybody else, we look forward to seeing you, or happy to see you, I should say. Carlos, good evening to the Mad New Yorker. There's very few differences in the coaches poll and the AP polls. We're not going to talk too much about that. It's basically the same top 10. And just a couple of swaps in places. Like I said, the top 4 are the same. Top 5 are the same, I should say, right to Notre Dame. Then you got A&M a little bit higher in the AP poll that came out. Utah just a little bit higher. Michigan a bit lower. Oklahoma the same. Baylor the same. So, not much to talk about there. But we're going to get into some other news around. What do you got here? Josh Heupel looking to have a better season with quarterback Hooker. Listen, we talked about the SEC last week. We talked about Tennessee. I do think Tennessee's on the upswing. we can certainly talk a little bit about that again tonight. Well, and I was going to get around to the other conferences real quickly, but we can certainly concentrate more on the SEC as well, especially since we have John DeLon and Carlos with us tonight, who are two of our resident SEC fans. But I wanted to get started with some news and notes that I saw around college football outside of the top 25 rankings that we saw. A couple of things to take a look at here quickly. And again, we'll have Lary Sorensen on at the bottom of the hour. Some interesting news in the fact that Miami and Atlanta have been picked to host might be the final college football playoffs. Well, I guess one of them would have to be the new format if they should go to one. Atlanta's going to get the 2025 title game. Miami's going to get the 2026 title game. I'm not a big fan of Hard Rock Stadium out there in Miami. I don't know what the deal is with, one of the problems Miami's had through the years is being off campus. And I suppose it's fine to have the national title game there, but Coral Gables is just out in the middle of nowhere. Let's see what John's got here. The last few shows, none of my comments make it to the show. I really apologize for that. Been in and out of the hospital the last month and a half, currently in physical therapy. Oh my gosh, John, I hope you're feeling better. And I do apologize. I certainly am not, I would not ignore your comments. You're a fun contributor to this show. And, I feel bad that's been happening. Sometimes when you're not on the Facebook side, though, I think there's something you need to you might need to accept or click to have your comments show up on Facebook. So I'm glad to see that you're on today. And I'll see if I can get to the bottom of that with YouTube of why those comments don't come up. Don't think for a second, John, I would ever ignore you. Heck, I don't ignore Carlos, for crying out loud. So I'm just kidding, Carlos. So again, we'll look into that for you. And John, if there's something that you had brought up like last week when we were reviewing the Power 5 conferences and the SEC specifically, because I know that you're a big fan and an LSU fan. So if there's something you want to address tonight, we'll be happy to, backtrack and do that. Obviously the power conferences dominate conversation anyway, but I did want to get to some of the other conferences at some point tonight. And again, at bottom of the hour, we're going to have Lary Sorensen on from Wake Forest to get an update on some of the things going on there and see what he might be hearing about the ACC. What do you got here, John? For the record, I prefer to be referred to as an ACC. It's funny. I started to say SEC elitist, and I stopped. So I will call both of you and Carlos SEC elitist because I know you wear the term proudly on your sleeves. So I'm just trying to fix my camera a little. I apologize for that. So I'm glad you accept it the way that it's meant. So and I'm glad that your comments are getting in tonight. John, the world of the internet is very interesting, and streaming is what it is, and who knows what could have gone wrong. But I do apologize. So we want to certainly keep you in the loop. So anyway, that's our comment there. So we talk about that. We got into the playoff sites for 2026. LSU, we can talk about this. In the news this week, Miles Brennan has walked away from football. Former now LSU quarterback, a 6-year senior who'd entered the transfer portal, I believe, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, twice, pretty much within a few months. He entered the transfer portal, I think, last year when Ed Orgeron was fired, and he entered again after Chip Kelly was hired. He's now walked away from football. He was in a battle with Arizona State transfer Jaden Daniels and also sophomore Garrett Nussmeier. So, John, if you got any thoughts on that, Tracy Sherlock, is this Tracy Sherlock or is this Rick Sherlock is what I'd like to know. Georgia and everyone else that is an SEC elitist. I think that's Rick. Good evening, Rick. If it's not Rick, then good evening, Tracy, but I got a feeling it's Rick. So we got 3 SEC elitists and me. And Larry Sorensen coming on at the bottom of the hour. So I don't know. I don't know that, Miles Brennan had not had a particularly stellar career at LSU. Again, he was fighting for his job. He'd won the starting job in 2020. He averaged around 370 yards passing per game, but he suffered a weird abdominal injury, I think, at some point that confused doctors and ended his season just 3 weeks into that 2020 season. And I think overall, I got his numbers here. He had compiled 1,712 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions across 18 games. So Miles Brennan's going to look to do something else, and Daniels and Nussmeier will continue to compete for that starting job in what might be a tough year for Chip Kelly at the outset here. Last week I said I didn't think that Lane Kiffin had any interest in the LSU job. I didn't, and I don't. According to Matt Moscani of the ESPN radio station Baton Rouge, Kiffin goes, well, I don't have my ear to the ground there. That would just be my feeling. My feeling was Lane Kiffin didn't have extreme interest in that job, but I think Lane Kiffin has found himself a home. Does that mean now, again, the radio station, the local radio station in Baton Rouge may have better sources than I have up here, or, they might just want to talk about Lane Kiffin. Who knows? I don't know why I feel this, and I feel like I'm defending Lane Kiffin like right and left on the show, it seems, but I think Lane Kiffin is a really good football coach who has started to grow up and grow into, what a good college football coach should be. And I do think he's found a home in Mississippi, but I could be wrong. LSU is throwing a lot of money around. I don't know that LSU is, and if that's the case, I don't know if LSU also is interested. So that guy should try out for the Jets. Miles Brennan should try out for the Jets. That's kind of interesting. Personally, I think Lane would crawl on hands and knees from Oxford to Baton Rouge to get the LSU job. I mean, again, as an LSU fan, you would think that, John. I mean, you would think, and a lot of guys would. It's a good football job, right? I think Chip Kelly made a huge mistake in taking it, though. I mean, so, yeah, I don't know. LSU is a great, great place to coach. But you know what? Fan base, and you, John, can probably speak this better than me. Is it realistic for LSU fans to think that they're going to compete year in and year out with the Georgias, the Alabamas? Is it realistic for anybody in the SEC to think they'll do that? I don't know. Now LSU's have been a very good football program through the years, and they have had seasons where they've built up to have very good seasons. But Ed Orgeron got that job because Les Miles wasn't getting it done to the satisfaction of the fan base. So, there's a reason that job has come open twice. Leopards don't change their spots. I'm assuming that's about Mr. Kiffin as well. I don't know. Just look at it. It's just a thought that I have. Whether it's true or not, again, it's a feeling that I have that Lane Kiffin will stay at Mississippi for a bit. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong many, many, many times. And nobody admits they're wrong faster than me. A little bit more news on the quarterback front, and Kenny Gifford. Welcome, Kenny. I didn't say good evening to you. I apologize. Good evening, Kenny. Notre Dame has named sophomore Tyler Buckner as its starting quarterback for the 2022 season. That decision came down this past weekend, and it comes 8 days after they started their preseason camp. So Marcus Freeman doesn't wait long to name his first starting quarterback. He gets this job after playing behind starter Jake Crone last season as a true freshman. He did get in and threw for 298 yards and 3 touchdowns and rushed for 338 yards. So he's going to add an interesting dimension to this Notre Dame offensive attack potentially. So he was in competition with Drew Pine this year, and Pine, who did play I thought he played more last year. He tallied just 224 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. They also announced, by the way, last weekend that starting wide receiver Avery Davis had torn an ACL in his right knee and will be out for the season. He had 27 catches last year, so Notre Dame will need to replace that. Let's see. We got some oops, hold on. Sorry, that's a new one. Moscona. How do you say his name? Moscona? Is a jerk, but he probably has more LSU booster contacts than ESPN national guys. I don't doubt that. Again, you should have those contacts in your local area. So, and John thinks that Lane changes jobs at the end of this season. He's just not a small town guy. That's possible. Look at, he's coached in Los Angeles, but he's coached at Florida Atlantic as well. I mean, so that's kind of not in the bright lights. I don't know. We'll see. I could always be wrong. Carlos is saying hi, Kenny. He wants to know if his spare bed is ready for whenever we have our little get together. Awesome little guy. Looked for the best last year. I guess you're talking about the Buckner. Good for him. You know what? Good to see him get a shot. I'm interested to see what Notre Dame gets this first year under Marcus Freeman. It should be very, very interesting. He adds love. Oh, heart. Well, that's a very good point, and you need heart out of your quarterback. Did I see the outside lines piece on the booster agent for Miami and the dollars he's getting for his clients? If we're talking about, what's his name? Ruiz? I didn't see the ESPN piece at all, Rick. I have talked quite a bit in the past about some of the booster and NIL issues at Miami specifically. There's one guy, and I think his name is Ruiz, he's got clients like over 110 or something contracts with different players and clients at Miami, and he's under scrutiny for sure. Not sure what the ESPN article said, but I'll take a look at it. Pretty sure Auburn will fire Harsin. I agree with this one, unless you know what you think. That'd be an interesting hire for the Iron Bowl. Would certainly get much more interesting with Saban and Kiffin facing off. But I don't know. Listen, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Kiffin takes the Auburn job and leaves Mississippi. I do think Harsin's probably going to be in trouble unless they have a much, much better year than they had last year. I think they lost their last 6 games last year, last 5. And also he came under some scrutiny for the way he treated his players, because we can't yell and scream at players. We know that, right? What we got here? Don't forget Kenny's offer is open on the top of the mountain, Carlos. Is your insurance good? You actually might want to have maybe a tracking device planted on you, I think, Carlos, if you were to visit the mountain. Just my 2 cents. So again, we got about 18 after the hour. We'll have one of our favorite guests, Lary Sorensen, on at the bottom of the hour. Talk a little bit of Wake Forest football and see what other questions you guys might have for Larry. Is Kiffin on the hot seat? Why would Kiffin be on the hot seat? There's some guys on the hot seat. Scott Frost is certainly on the hot seat. We'll talk about some of these guys right now if you'd like. When you look at guys who are really hot, Scott Frost, Jeff Scott, Jeff Collins, David Shaw, even at Stanford. Lane Kiffin's not on the hot seat. They just had one of the best seasons they've had in, since Eli Manning was at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a good football school, but they don't have 10, 11 win seasons every year. They don't go to New Year's Day bowl games every year. There's no way he's on the hot seat. Does LSU already want him? I think they have a coach that they paid a lot of money for, and I think they're probably happy with before they play a game. Can't dance a lick. But I'll let John speak to that. Why would I'm not even sure how to answer that, Carlos. There are some other guys on the hot seat, though. Since we're talking about this topic, let's change the banner to I'll go back around some college football news later. I don't know if I thought I had a banner here for a hot seat, but yeah, here we go. So I was looking at this today. The heat-o-meter for some guys. Steve Garsagian. This team, Texas is one of the, I think, most interesting teams in the conference. If their offensive line protects their new quarterback, Ewers, we don't know what he can do. He could be a great quarterback. This team could win, I don't know, they could win 9 or 10 games, or they could win 4 games. They're one of the more interesting cases around the country. I think there's several teams in this situation. Maybe Texas leading the way as far as interesting teams with no idea what to expect from them. Let's see. He chooses paydays. Well, I don't. I mean, do you think he chose a payday to go to Florida Atlantic? I know I know that you have a bad taste in your mouth, Carlos, for Lane Kiffin because of what he did at Tennessee. Did he get paid a lot more money to go to USC? Most likely. I don't know the particulars as far as the contract goes, but he was a West Coast guy, and if he was going to go someplace, I would think he'd go to the West Coast. But there are no jobs open there. So I don't know that he chases the payday. All these coaches chase the payday. I mean, when the highest paid state official in every single state in this country, excepting maybe Alaska, is the football coach of the state university, they're all going to chase the payday. This past season was the first season Ole Miss won 10 regular season games. That's a great point, actually. I was going to say I thought they'd won 10 in the Eli Manning area with David Cutlass as the coach, and I thought they won 10 one year when Archie was there. But you're right. Those were only 9-win teams. They had some good. You look at it. Eli took them to a Cotton Bowl. Archie Manning was a tremendous quarterback in college. I think Archie was better than both his boys, to be honest with you. That's just, again, my opinion. But this was a great season for Ole Miss. So there's no way Lane Kiffin is on the hot seat, no matter what happens in Ole Miss this year. Unless there's some stuff going on that we don't know about, Lane Kiffin is not on the hot seat. So let's not get too excited here about some of that stuff. But there's some other guys that are, though. Ex-Patriot quarterback coach Jed Fish is going to be in trouble at Arizona. Carl Doral at Colorado. Tom Allen at Indiana had a great season 2 years ago, and as great a season as they had at Indiana, which they don't often have great seasons, they had as bad a year last year. And Tom Allen finds himself, being a darling of the media and darling of the Indiana fans to a pariah in, less than 12 calendar months. Kiffin chose FAU because he was collecting money from Bama. I doubt he was still getting paid by Bama. I mean, he was a coordinator because he was collecting, but money from Alabama. I'm not sure if I'm understanding what you're saying. And it was in Boca Raton, and he lived in a house on the beach. Well, again, it's not a big city. It's not Miami. I get your point. I mean, it's pretty good life. Is it better to live in Boca Raton than Oxford, Mississippi? Maybe so. But is it better to coach an SEC school and rebuild some tradition at a school? It depends. I don't know what Lane Kiffin wants. I think Lane Kiffin has changed. I think Lane Kiffin wants to build himself a little something at Mississippi. I could be totally out of it. Oh, buyout. Gotcha, John. Thank you. Believe me, I know what it's like trying to type this. But still, again, Did he go to FAU for the money? No, he went to FAU to rebuild his reputation as a head football coach. I mean, he was persona non grata with NCAA, especially Division I FBS schools, for quite some time. Yeah, I would still own my house in Boca Raton as well. By the way, it's a beautiful area, not a big city. Hello, Augustine. Good to have you with us tonight. Where are you checking in from? I think Augustine is a new viewer with us, and welcome, at least live with us, and we always welcome in new people warmly. So welcome. If you've got comments on college football, we'll be happy to address them, and we'd love to know where you're checking in from, Augustine, because if you're another SEC elitist, I don't know how much more I can take. I got 3 of them and a Notre Dame fan in here tonight. At least the ones that are identifying themselves. So listen, to go back to Kiffin, I do not know anything that somebody else doesn't know. It's a feeling that I have watching Lane Kiffin, watching him in interviews. I know people think he's disingenuous and whatnot, but I've started to see a different Lane Kiffin in the last year and a half. Just a change in his personality a bit. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he chases the payday. Augustine is in California. SEC fan, UCLA fan. You'd let us know where you're rooting for there, Augustine. Who else is in trouble, you guys? I really don't think anybody in the SEC is necessarily in trouble other than outside of Harsin. I mean, you guys can comment on this yourself, but I mean, who do you see as in trouble in the SEC? Maybe Chuck Lee at Vanderbilt. That's a tough place to win, and he's done The only guy that's won there that I can think of in the recent past is James Franklin, who I'm not a huge fan of. He did a really good job at Vanderbilt, but Kiffin, I will trust you, John. Kiffin wanted to party with hot 24-year-old girls on the beach more than he wanted to rebuild his coaching image. I will totally disagree. Did he want to maybe party with 25-year-olds on the beach? I can't speak to that. It's possible. Again, life in Boca Raton is fun, but there's no doubt in my mind Lane Kiffin wanted to rebuild his coaching reputation. He wanted to get back into big-time college coaching. That's why he went to Florida Atlantic. Again, I don't know a lot about Lane Kiffin's private life, and I'm not going to speculate on it here. And Augustine's an Oregon Ducks fan, so we're glad to have you aboard, as I said, for the first time, Augustine, and we hope you'll continue to pop in and participate in the show. And we're going to have one of our favorite guests on tonight before the season gets underway. Lary Sorensen joins us a lot during the college football season. We're not there yet, but we got a couple of things to talk about Wake Forest, and we'll see what else Larry's got to talk to us about tonight in the world of the ACC and Wake Forest. And welcome back, Lary Sorensen, one of our favorite guests to have on the show. Good to have you tonight.
Good to see you. Always nice to be with you. Looking forward to football. It's right around the corner, and I would like to attest that it is fun living in Boca Raton.
There you go. Again, there's more to life in Boca Raton than 25-year-old girls on a beach, though, I think, right? I mean,
That's correct. That indeed there are.
I mean, I was just having this conversation. I know it's a little bit out of your field, but we were talking about Lane Kiffin, and I think he's changed in the last couple of years, and that he might be looking to stay at Mississippi and maybe build a little legacy. And I'm getting a lot of my group is tough, man. I'm the only guy in the world I feel like backing Lane Kiffin sometimes.
Sometimes it takes some of us longer to reach that level of maturity that we wished we had reached earlier.
Right. We know that. So anyway, Larry, good to have you on. Listen, I guess we got to start. I certainly want to talk a little bit about Wake Forest as we ramp up. What do we know about the biggest topic, obviously, in at Wake Forest right now is Sam Hartman and his physical condition. What do we know about what's happened to him? It was a non-football injury from what I understood. What do we know about him and the timeline that he'll be out?
Well, we know that it's one of the best kept secrets that Wake Forest will have all season.
Still.
That for sure we know. It is a non-football related medical situation. They're not exactly calling it an injury, which really leads to a lot of speculation, and there has been tons of speculation, and there still is no real official word. He was at practice today. I spoke with him briefly. He had a Sandlots T-shirt on, and I said, "You're killing me, Smalls." And he just kind of laughed and said, "They never said it'd be easy." He said, "Not one single day did they ever say it'd be easy." So, but he was out. He helped a receiver with an adjustment on a route, and he was at practice and not in great spirits, but you wouldn't expect him to be. He's got 2 years of eligibility left at Wake Forest. This was going to be his last season. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out because Dave Clawson has said he'll be back, but there is absolutely no speculation on when that will be.
That's interesting. It's hard to keep a secret in today's world as well as they've done this. I mean, again, you want to respect anybody's privacy, right? But
and as soon as that word HIPAA comes up in some of the statements that are out there, and Dr. Chris Miles, who happens to be my primary care physician as well, is the team doctor, and you couldn't drag it out of him with the bulldozer. I know that to be true. So there will be just more guesses, more wildness, and we'll see what happens. In the meantime, Mitch Griffiths, who is in his 3rd year in the program, will be the starting quarterback. Michael Kern, in his 4th year in the program, who probably has a few more snaps than Griffiths does, will be the number 2 quarterback for the moment.
And Griffiths, he's a
redshirt freshman, I believe.
Right? Yeah.
But this is his 3rd season at Wake Forest.
Is this his job to win or lose? Is it done deal? He'll be the starter.
Dave Clawson has named him the number 1 quarterback. I'm actually in Winston-Salem, went to practice today. There is a scrimmage tomorrow night. They open with VMI in 2 weeks, and it's a night game, a Thursday night game. So they're going to have a Thursday night scrimmage to start getting everybody ready for that time clock.
And this is Rick Sherlock, not Tracy Sherlock. I'm almost positive he's under an alias tonight, but he's welcoming you back. We know that Rick likes Larry a lot, as do all of our viewers. So we always thank him for coming in. So is there any other, what are the other big stories down there? Obviously, we know we got a new defensive coordinator. We've got some new faces as far as transfers. Kobe Turner comes to mind as one of the additions to the defense, which we know is something that Wake Forest and Dave Clawson really wanted to make put a focus on improving this year. What are you seeing and hearing about that side of the football?
The defense is flying around. They really, really believe that Kobe's going to give them more depth up front, which is something they need. I think they're going to be much more aggressive. And so I think that they're expecting defensive tackles, as Brad Lambert, the new coordinator, put it the other day. I don't want guys taking out blockers all the time. I want defensive tackles and defensive ends making tackles.
There's
and
an
making
idea.
plays, not just setting it up for a linebacker who may or may not make the play. So I think overall it'll be a much more aggressive defense. They scored 42 points a game last year. Sam Hartman was responsible for 50 touchdowns. Think about that for a minute, Keith. 50 touchdowns, that's a lot of points from your quarterback position. And so maybe you don't get that with a younger player coming in, but if your defense turns a little bit better on you, that makes a difference as well.
Absolutely. I think when we were talking about this last week, he was one of maybe, I don't remember the number now, but I think there's only like 5 quarterbacks in FBS school history that have been responsible for 50 touchdowns.
Right.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good group of people, obviously. And it's hard to replace that, but you're right. If you can make up some of the ones that you gave up on the other side of the football, it'll lessen that impact for sure.
Now, the other flip side of that is that you're never going to have a great defense at Wake Forest as fast as they play. I had a long talk with Rondell Bothroyd, who is their edge rusher at the meetings in Charlotte, the football meetings, and he said, we just get back on the field too fast. And even going, 6 or 7 deep up front, you just got to keep adding the depth. I think one of the big differences that everybody's talking about now is it looks like there's going to be more depth in the defensive backfield. And again, this is all knock on wood. Who knows what injuries are going to bring?
Right.
But it looks like they've got a new defensive backfield coach, and it looks like he's going to make a difference back there as well. And they've got more depth, which will be huge.
New linebacker coach too. They're pretty much an entire new staff on defense. It looks like.
And Brad Lambert, who was the head coach at Charlotte and built that program, then went to Purdue the last couple of years, and they had a great defensive improvement at Purdue. And Dave Clawson simply said, it's time for us to have an established person as our coordinator on the defensive side. We're not looking for a young rising star. We want somebody with some credentials. Lambert's been at Wake Forest, knows how to recruit at Wake Forest, knows how the system works with a private school, smallest school in the Power 5 divisions, and knows how to work the system here.
That's is there any thought? So we talked about the defense and how tough it is to play defense with the way Wake plays offense. With Hartman being out and Griffiths coming in, is there any thought to them changing up the offensive style at all, or is it still going to be full speed ahead?
It's still going to be full tilt. They just have so much confidence in the way Warren Ruggiero has designed that offense and believe that they can score on just about anybody. They're preparing. They've got a very veteran group of offensive linemen back. Lost Zach Tom to the NFL, but everybody else is back, along with Javonte Nash, who was hurt last year. So essentially, they've got their entire starting line back and are very confident about the depth there, and think that depth is going to make a big difference for whoever quarterbacks in as far as being able to run their system the way that they want to do it with that slow mesh.
Yeah, having those veterans around will help him, obviously.
The trenches, say what you want. It always comes down to the trenches.
Yeah, both sides of the football. So that's important. I mean, are there other transfers I know they lost a running back going out. I can't remember where he went to now.
Beal Smith. Beal Smith went to South Carolina, which is really interesting because it's kind of the same pattern that Kenneth Walker followed last year going to Michigan State. You get to that point of your career where this is probably going to be your draft year. And no matter how good you were, and everybody knew how good Kenneth Walker was, but he was not going to get 25 carries a game. They just believe you train 3 running backs, you pay your dues your first year or two as that number 3 guy, and you just keep moving up the pecking order. And then Walker transferred, obviously had great success. Christian Beal Smith now has transferred, done the same thing, going to South Carolina, where he believes he's going to get the large amount of carries and be responsible on all downs.
It'll be very interesting to see if the situation translates like Kenneth Walker's did, because he obviously parlayed that into a pretty good draft status going to Seattle in the first round.
I'm not sure that South Carolina is going to have the same kind of supporting cast that he had at Michigan State with the changes that they made and the arc that program is on right now, trending very nicely in East Lansing.
They are moving up with Shane Beamer as the head coach there.
South Carolina is, interesting times. And, I was talking with Michael Kern, the backup quarterback today, and he was saying, I said, how are things going? He said, it's just a lot of prep and you're ready to go. And I said, the baseball analogy is at some point in time, you have to pick the ball up, point yourself south, and throw it with anger, and the football teams are about at that point. They've been through the spring drills. They've had their spring game. Camp is at that I'm really tired of it point, but you've still got 2 more weeks of grinding to get through it, and he said, we're just ready to play. We want to go play some other people.
Dave Clawson, you get the feeling from the coaching staff that even with Hartman out, next man up can get this done?
Keith, I think they've got so much confidence in the way that offense operates. John Wolford did a terrific job for him, paid his dues as a freshman, got beat up, and then the offense got some confidence in itself and picked up some momentum. And Wolford had a great year. Now he's a backup quarterback for the Rams. Yep. And I think, though, that they really believe you can take a guy that maybe is not that 5-star, throw the ball 70 yards kind of guy and make him a productive part of what that offensive scheme is. Mitch Griffiths is known as a gamer. He's a guy that's not going to wow you necessarily with the short time it takes for the ball to get from point A to point B, but he's going to find ways to win. That's been the that's been the book on him.
It's interesting, the pollsters. I mean, the coaches poll, I think, came out around the time the announcement was made about Hartman being out, and they were ranked 18 or 19, I think. But the AP poll just came out here earlier this week, and they're still in the top 20. I'm sorry, top 22.
22, yeah.
And that's after Hartman's out. So there's some confidence in this team outside of the quarterback, obviously.
Well, they were going to have 17 starters coming back. And that's a pretty good place to start. So it's a very veteran club. I think this team and this program, because of the way they operate, almost every freshman is redshirted immediately. And with the COVID year, which is still straightening itself out, they've still got some 7-year and 6-year players. And they're all intelligent kids. Mm-hmm. And maybe they weren't the big physical prospects coming in. Terrific weight program and strength and conditioning program, and have built themselves into being very solid players. And when you look at the NFL preseason games the last weekend, there are an awful lot of Demon Deep players that had very good days for a lot of different teams.
Good point. Maybe more than I've noticed in history. I don't know. I've seen Wake Forest guys around the league. So
I think you're probably right with that. Yeah. And I'll get the staff to work on that. The staff being my wife, basically. But
you do have a crack staff for sure.
Yeah. And see if we can come up with how many they've had in the league at one time. But when you look around the offensive line, Justin Strnad with Denver out in the middle on the defensive side, Jesse Bates, maybe the best safety in the league, one of the best safeties in the league with Cincinnati. So there are a lot of great players out there.
Well, Carlos wants to put you right on the stop. The Mad New York, right on the spot. Wants to know, what do you think? Are you willing to go on a limb and say Wake Forest will win how many games?
I think everybody in the program, and I'm with them, will be disappointed if it's not double figures. And 10 wins, 10-2 was the number as I looked through the schedule and kind of juiced things out. 10-2 was the number that I came up with. And I think people would be disappointed anything less than that. That's the number Sam Hartman had last year in the preseason. They ended up, of course, winning more than that. So good program on the upswing, and I'm going to go with double figures.
I can buy that. I mean, it's going to be an interesting year in the ACC, as we talked about. And I think when I went through the schedule, I came up with 2 losses for them in the regular season. Possibly that was before Hartman went down. But again, as I look at it quickly, I mean, I don't see where I would change up. The fact that they should win X amount of games. They should not be losing to anybody but Clemson and North Carolina State's the only losses I have for them on this.
And they have Clemson at home, which of course is a big help. And the other thing, that's going to be a really interesting game because Max Venables was big on blitzing, and he was always trying to put pressure on that mesh point. And with a new defensive coordinator, it'll be interesting to see what approach they take. Being in Winston-Salem, it'll be a sellout. Wake Forest, as we've talked about before, will have 90% of the student body there, which is always an exciting and loud time. So when the atmosphere gets going, it's not like your 100,000 seat stadiums, or it's not like going to Death Valley, but it can get pretty exciting, and they get some fever.
I think that Atlantic Division is going to be very competitive this year. That's Boston College is going to be better in my mind. We know Clemson's probably going to be, again, they had a horrible year last year.
Only won 10 games, yeah.
A horrible year. We know what North Carolina State did last year. Florida State's got to get better, or their coach is going to be history. So that's going to be a tough division, especially when you compare it against the Coastal, which to me is right there for my Hurricanes. Sorry to say that.
Well, they're the favorites, and I think they should be. Yeah. And I think that they're getting an awful lot of things going down there in Coral Gables. If they'd ever get a stadium in Coral Gables, I think they'd be even better off. But, I think that Mario Cristobal's really got things rocking and rolling, and they're going to be a good team. I'll tell you, one thing that you can count on is you're going to see good quarterback play every single weekend coming out of the ACC. There are some terrific college quarterbacks that are going to be playing every weekend.
Excellent point. One thing I want to bring up here before I forget, because Rick Sherlock had something up here. I know he wanted you to see that Mark Black, former Wake Forest baseball player, was with the Amsterdam Mohawks, who won the Perfect Game League, I think, championship again this year, with Mark Black being a very big contributor. I know he transferred out of Wake Forest this past season, but He's certainly was a very good player. I'm assuming he played well with Wake, and I don't know the reason for him transferring. But
well, they brought a transfer in from Tulane who was expected to get that starting catching job, and I think he saw the handwriting on the wall with that and didn't want to wait, and so he took advantage of another opportunity. But Wake baseball is going to be very good this year. They've got two guys that are projected in to be first-round draft picks already, and another one that's going to be a sophomore projected to be a first rounder next year. So the baseball team's in pretty good shape as well.
So you've got Wake winning double figures. Who would you say, if there's going to be a team that comes out of nowhere in the ACC this year to surprise us, who would you say is, and in either division, who would you say would be that team?
I don't think we can call North Carolina State a surprise. We can't call Miami a surprise.
No.
Pitt obviously is not going to be a surprise. I think North Carolina is getting overlooked a little bit, and I think Mac Brown's trying to keep it that way. And Mac Brown is a master manipulator of the media, so he's really downplaying his team a lot. And I think people are kind of poo-pooing them a little bit unnecessarily, because they always have great athletes there. Traditionally, they have recruited, have gotten the choice of recruits in the state of North Carolina and in this particular area. So I guess maybe they would be a team that I think is being overlooked a little bit, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them win that division. Could win the league.
Similar to Wake Forest in a lot of ways, put a lot of points up. Defense has been a problem. Brand new defensive coordinator with head coach experience in Gene Chizik. So that'll be an interesting dynamic as well. It's kind of parallel to Wake Forest's situation there.
Will be a very interesting situation. It's funny because there are, especially at the quarterback spot, which is so visible. You go into a game and you read the guy's numbers and say, look at these, and then it's always somebody else that has that career day that you didn't expect. The running back that goes for 140, the tight end that catches 2 touchdown passes and has 3 catches for 80 yards. Wake Forest has been beat by guys having career days that you didn't really expect to do that. Knew they were a good football player, didn't expect them to have that kind of a day.
That's a great thing about college football. There's a couple of those guys who pop up every weekend in games across the country. That's why it's such a fun game. Let me look at a couple of comments before we let you go tonight. So John DeLon, who is, by the way, demands that I identify him as an SEC elitist, so he likes the title, so we give it to him, and he wears it proudly. He says Clemson straightened out a lot of their line problems at the end of last season, which I'd have to agree with. They should go 12-1 at worst. That might be a little much. They're going to be in the ACC championship game. I think probably Wake Forest is and North Carolina will give them a bit of a battle, but I think Clemson will probably come out on top. But hard to say right now.
I think that's the easy thing to say. They've got to get their quarterback situation straightened out too. And you just never know. The thing about Clemson is they're so strong defensively, particularly on the defensive line. And the offensive line will be back, will be healthy. They were killed by injuries all over the football field last year, not just at offensive line, but they had a lot of injuries throughout the entire team. They'll certainly be a great football team. I think that the ACC is going to have a great year overall.
Yeah.
And we'll see how everything comes out.
And I think John put this comment up to the who we see coming out of nowhere. I wouldn't say NC State's coming out of nowhere. They had a great team.
I think they're going to have a great team, and I think they easily could win the Atlantic. I just don't think it'll be a surprise for them to do it, because when you look at Devin Leary, you look at some of the people that they've got back, terrific defense, really good defense, and a lot of them coming back. It's not going to be shocking if they have a great year and win the conference.
Great point. And Carlos talks about the fact that Army's repaying a visit that Wake made up to West Point last year on October 8th, and he would like to see Army rise to the occasion and play Wake hard. They'll play hard.
Hey, they played them hard last year, 70-56. They played them very hard last year. It's a great story. We had to get out about 2 miles away from the stadium because it was a sellout and traffic was backed up. We couldn't get through the base gates. And so my partner and I and our sideline guy had to hike and actually our tight end's parents just asked me today exactly how far it was, because I passed them as they were stuck in line, and I passed them at a very slight jog to get into the stadium to be there for the pregame show.
Well, it's a good thing they have that workout regimen for you color analysts down there in the ACC. Or you?
Well, the military, they force you to train.
And by the way, Army's going to go down there and give them a good game. Jeff Monken is one of the most underrated coaches in the country, and he's got that Army team ready to play all the time. So I think
nobody likes having any of the military teams on their schedule. Army runs that option play so well, and the 3-wing, and they present a lot of different problems, and it's the only team that does it. And you prepare for it all year. Wake Forest prepares for Army all season long, parts of their practices during every week.
I'm not sure about this count. Klubnik takes over quarterback duties after the NC State game. Is he talking about Clemson? Who's he talking about?
Clemson?
Let me just take a quick look at. I think that's Clemson's backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I think that's what he's talking about. I don't know.
Who is supposed to be a terrific player, but
Yeah, DJ. Look, DJ had a great year. I can't say his last name, so I just call him DJ now. DJ
Uiagalelei, I think it is, and I usually don't worry about it till Clemson week, and then I usually go with DJ as well. But let's not forget, and at the ACC meetings, it was pointed out that he came in as a 5-star freshman, that people wanted to take Trevor Lawrence's job. They thought at some point they needed to make that switch then. And then Dabo said, all of a sudden I got really stupid and he couldn't play and I'm supposed to make this other change, and so Dabo had some really interesting things to say about that whole quarterback situation, but he's pretty comfortable with the young man that he's got behind center right now.
Yeah, I think he took a lot of probably, and a quarterback's going to do that, right? When the offense struggles like Clemson did early in the year last year. But
sure.
As John himself pointed out, I think they had some issues on the offensive line that got straightened out. I would think they're better this year. And
Dabo was very quick to point out, he said, we weren't very good around him. He said 2 years ago, we were good around him. And he said last year, we weren't very good around him. And he said, I expect him to be, he said this year we should be good again. And I expect him to be a very, very good quarterback in the ACC.
Well, it's going to be an interesting year around college football, as we've already talked about. I think the ACC, I know the Mad New Yorker certainly likes to bash the ACC. I do not. I think it's a very balanced, deep league. Maybe there's not an Alabama in there, but it's a really good football league. And you may see by the end of the year, I think you're going to see 2 or 3 really good football teams at the end of the season come out of this conference, and maybe a contender for the playoff.
It's interesting. In every sport, in everything, they say, well, he's no, they're no Alabama. Well, there's 2 Alabamas. There's Georgia and there's Alabama, and maybe Ohio State on the outside. Clemson was right there for a while. That changes, but through the years, there's only been 1 Alabama, really. Let's be honest. And when you look at any sport, there's only been 1 Kobe Bryant. There's only been 1 whoever you want to name, whatever sport. There's only been 1 of them. They're special people for a reason. They're special teams for a reason. And to say that, the rest of the league is weak because Clemson's so good, I don't think is fair. I think it's going to be a terrific year, competitive year. You'll see a lot of upsets. I think we're nearing the end of that COVID situation, which is going to start, how you manage your roster has as much to do with how you play every weekend as much as anything. And the teams that for the last 2, 3, 4 years have positioned their roster well are going to be the successful ones at the end. When you've got 24, 25-year-olds playing against 19-year-olds, you're going to win.
Very good point. Do you think that the ACC winner, do they need to be undefeated to be able to get into the playoff? Or can a one-loss ACC champion get in?
I think a one-loss ACC champion could get in. I think a Clemson could get in. I don't think a Wake Forest could get in with a loss.
Yeah, I guess that's probably a better question is, can anybody but Clemson with one loss?
I think probably Clemson's the only team that could get in with a loss and still make the playoff.
Yeah, I would make the same call. And I think, you know what? It's going to be that way across the country because either 2 from Big Ten, 2 from the SEC. If Notre Dame's in play, obviously that takes – you got to be undefeated in the ACC, the Big 12, or the Pac-12. You got to be undefeated to get in there.
And Notre Dame is in play. They're going to be very good.
Yes, I think so too. What do you think? What do you think about their naming of the youngster, their quarterback, Buckner?
Well, this is the approach they want to have for the next few years. and they're starting it now. They're taking a little bit of a chance, but that's the direction that they want to go. Hear nothing but great things. There are some people, Keith, that you just see them and that there's that special it. And I think I've told you the story before about Sam Hartman. In his first season as a freshman, we were doing Fan Fest, which is obviously where people have access to the team and everything else. And it rained, so we were underneath the stadium, and we had a broadcast position going, and we're doing some different things. And Sam came down, we had him on and talked with him. His parents were around. And some of the players started saying, "What do you want to do now?" And somebody said, "Sam, what do you want to do?" Sam said, "Let's go down there." 17 guys got up and followed Sam Hartman, and he was, 3 weeks into his college career. And there's some guys that just have that magnetism, that little it that does it. And it sounds like Notre Dame might have one too.
I say this all the time. You've got to have a leader in the field. I get in this argument with the Mad New Yorker on our Are You Serious debate show on Friday mornings. Your quarterback needs to be the leader on the field. Has to be.
Yeah.
And if he's not, you're in trouble. And obviously Sam Hartman's a leader.
And he doesn't necessarily have to be your best player, although it's nice if he is.
Yeah.
But he's got to be the guy that when he speaks, everybody listens.
Agreed. We have this argument all the time, and he's about the only one staying on the other side of that argument.
I'll go back to my days at Michigan. I was in the IM building, and Dennis Green was the quarterback, and there was a basketball game going on 5-on-5, and it was kind of a racial tense moment at that point on a foul. And they said, "Well, ask Denny what he saw." And they asked him. He called the play, and everybody said, "Okay, play ball." That was it. Final decision. That was it. So interesting how quarterbacks and some guys have that magnetism. They change a room.
John does think a one-loss ACC champ can get in. Look, they let Cincinnati in. That was a different, they were undefeated, by the way. They didn't have one loss. So, and I will say this before we let you go. Again, Rick, not Tracy Sherlock, I will say, thanks you for stopping in, Larry, as do I. He does think, as do I, you are the most knowledgeable person that we bring on this show. At least when we talk about football and baseball, anyway. We don't talk about anything else. So I would think Larry's intelligent in a lot of areas, though. So
I like to be diverse. I'd like to know a little bit about a lot of things.
I got to tell you, if you remember when I first had you on my show, when I interviewed you on my interview show, and we were talking about your career and different stuff, I was surprised when I found out that you were the Wake Forest football color analyst. That shows your diversity right there.
Well, you try to do a little bit of different things. And we've got a unique broadcast. And the fact of the matter is, and I've said this many times, takes my broadcast partner starting his 27th year at Wake Forest, Stan Cotton. Takes him 9 seconds to recap a play, 8 seconds to set up a play. We take 22 seconds to run a play. And so I've got about 5 seconds to say, "That's right, Stan."
Well, you don't have to worry about studying the script too much then. You're doing a good job, Larry. You guys are doing a great job. You do a great job here. We love having you on with the football season coming on. I hope you're able to come on and when you're able to and recap the action in the ACC and Wake Forest specifically. And hopefully we get Sam Hartman back in there, and hopefully his stand-in will be able to stand up to the job in the meantime. So.
I love doing it, and people are fired up about this team, and it's going to be a very entertaining team to watch. I mean, scoring 70 points in a football game, that's entertainment.
I can't even put up Carlos's comment about leaders. I'll wait till you're gone, and because I'm probably going to go off on this one. So, yeah, Larry, thanks for coming in. Good luck. We'll talk to you. Maybe we'll talk to you after the VMI game and see how things are shaping up from that point on.
Anytime. Look forward to it.
You're the man. Thank you much, Larry. Have a great night. Bye-bye. Gosh, the great Lary Sorensen from Wake Forest, former Major League pitcher, as you know if you follow my show. He pitched with the Brewers and the Cardinals and Yays, and had a really, really good Major League Baseball career. And now he does color work for the baseball team at Wake Forest, the football team at Wake Forest. So he's a very diverse guy, and he does very, very well. So, and Carlos, I will put this up only because I have to, because it is one of the most ridiculous things you have ever said on any of my shows, whether it's in the audience or next to me here live. If you want to compare quarterbacks to Jim Jones and David Koresh, Carlos, I'm really concerned about you since our last meeting. Thanks, Larry Sorensen. That's a little bit better, Carlos. So anyway, I'm not even sure what to say to that, Carlos. I mean, oh my God. Oh my God. Somebody help me. Somebody help me. Leaders. You just heard a guy who's been around professional sports and college sports his entire life. Big schools, Michigan, played professionally in baseball. Talking about the fact that you need leaders. Your leaders don't have to be your best players. It's a good thing when it helps when they are. I don't want to get into this for the next half hour. Oh, Carlos, you and I maybe need to talk. I know we're going to have quite a debate on Friday, so watch the Are You Serious? It won't be about this topic necessarily, but we're going to be talking about whether preseason and the NFL is even necessary. Preseason games or not, training camp is, and we're going to have a spirited debate, I'm sure. Larry seems all right for an ACC guy. John, you are consistent as well. Thank you very much for speaking up. 1 hour, though. 1 hour in Larry for Mr. Sorensen, just an FYI. What else we got here? And you know what? Yeah, I think, John, get back to your comment over here about the one-loss ACC champ gets in. I really don't think anybody but Clemson can have one loss in that league, unless I don't believe it. Because let's just say, let me give you for instance. For instance, it sounds like I graduated from Perth Central High School. Let's just say Miami's undefeated. Okay. And Clemson has two losses going into the ACC championship game. Possible. If Miami loses that game, I find it very unlikely they're getting into the national championship game. Now, if Clemson has no losses and loses to Miami, they're not getting in either. But if they have one loss and they beat Miami in the ACC championship game, they get in. I really can't see Wake Forest getting to that ACC championship game and beating with one loss and beating anybody from the Coastal and getting a bid. I know what you're saying about Cincinnati, but they went undefeated. They had the PR machine rolling all year, including myself, saying they needed to get in. We needed an outsider in there. We needed somebody from the group of six to get into the playoff. And I think that helped Cincinnati along a lot last year. I personally think Clemson's the only one-loss team from the ACC. I don't think there's a team in the Pac-12 that can lose. I predicted Utah will get to the playoff undefeated. If they lose a game, they're out. Anybody in the Pac-12 loses a game, they're out. Unless things totally break down and Alabama loses 2 games and Georgia loses 2 games and Ohio State loses and Michigan loses 2 games, well, then all bets are off. But assuming the season plays out the way you would expect it to, I think it's going to be very tough to have one loss and be able to get into one of those. Just my opinion. Hang on one second here. What do we got going on here? Hold on. What do we got here? Quarterbacks nowadays just need to do their jobs, Carlos. Oh, my God. Carlos, how about adios? Oh, we're going to be putting that. He'll be offering you up for Brittany Griner again, Carlos. Born leaders, A types exist. Not everyone can be a leader. Right. You're absolutely right. Not everyone can be a leader. That's the first logical thing you said tonight. Well, since we started on this topic. This is the first logical thing you said about leaders. Not everybody can be a leader. You're right. But it's a really bad thing when your quarterback's not a leader. Look at Carson Wentz. Great numbers. Isn't a leader. It helps when you can lead and be the best player. I skipped something here, John. Sorry. If North Carolina State loses on a last-second field goal to Clemson, but wins not most, they'd have to win all of the rest of their games. Well, again, I still think. So you're talking about during the regular season, they lose to Clemson by a field goal, but they can't win most of the rest of their games. Oh, I see. You're saying they win all the games, but they win most of them by 2 scores. Well, again, they'd have to, what are they ranked right now? 13. I guess it would depend on where they were ranked when they lost to Clemson, how far they fell after they lost to Clemson, which wouldn't be far based on, the scenario you put up here. And this is assuming Clemson's good, right? So but here's the problem. Clemson's going to have to lose, and North Carolina State's got to get into the ACC championship game. Don't forget that. So that's, again, there's so many variables. It's possible for us to pick or predict it. I understand that. Carlos likes Cristobal. There's a ton of pressure on Miami to finish in the top rated because, there's big expectations with Marco coming home. There's big expectations when you got Van Dyke, who's expected to be at least a Heisman Trophy finalist. Played great last year in the second half of the season. Miami played better football in the second half of the season. The Coastal Division is very weak. Very weak. They need to run the table in their division. There is no reason Miami should lose to any of these teams this year in their division. And their games out of the division are against Clemson. And I went through the schedule here a little while ago. I think I had them with 1 loss during the regular season. I think it was to Clemson. On this, we agree. We can't fake leadership. Yes, you can't fake leadership. Agreed. And you see people. How about guys like A-Rod who think they're leaders and they're just phonies? I want guys that go out and lead by example and not just rah-rah guys. That's not what I'm talking about. Peyton Manning is a great leader. Tom Brady's a great leader. Not all leaders end up winning either because of who's surrounding them. But you can't win, and your quarterback, when your quarterback isn't your leader, you end up with teams like, Jeff George played on his entire career. Anyway, come on, man. If Pitt, Ohio State, or Baylor had 1 loss last year, then they would have bumped Cincinnati out of the 4 seed. Well, I don't know about Pittsburgh. Ohio State was in. Yeah, well, that one I would give. That wasn't a given for Cincinnati right up until the end. Oklahoma State beats Baylor. I think Oklahoma State's probably a better example, John, than Baylor. If Oklahoma State had beat Baylor in the Big 12 championship game, they probably would have had that 4th playoff spot, in my opinion. Notre Dame was in play right till the end of the year. A lot of things can happen, but it's very hard. Again, you could have 4 1-loss teams in the playoff because we don't know how things are going to play out. If I assume either Alabama or Georgia or somebody's going undefeated in the SEC, and if I assume Ohio State's going to go undefeated in the Big Ten, well, there's 2 spots, right? And then if Georgia's really good or Michigan's really good, then or somebody else in one of those 2 leagues is really good, then they've got a very good chance of getting in, especially if they upset an Alabama or an Ohio State in the SEC or the Big Ten championship game. Those teams have a better chance of getting in with 1 loss. And then you got Notre Dame as the wild card. If Notre Dame gets in, then you've got 1 spot. Because you got the SEC champion, you got the Big Ten champion, and Notre Dame. Because to me, the Big Ten and SEC championships are no-brainers. Champions are no-brainers. Until I'm proven wrong, those teams are going to be in every year. We'll see. Yeah, play. That's why we play, though. That's why it's fun to talk about. I think with the way Miami's gone the past seasons, I don't expect them to come out of the ACC. Again, totally different. Again, don't discount, as I told you with the Mets this year, Carlos, don't discount the change in attitude, the change in culture that and this is a different coach than they've had. I liked Mark Rich. Mark Rich had the same problems at Miami as he had at Georgia. He couldn't beat the teams that he needed to beat, like Clemson. He had teams that faded at the end of seasons. Marco Cristobal's a better coach in my mind coming out of Oregon than they've had in a while. Plus, he's coming home. He's a different type of coach, too. He's a little bit harder edge to him, I think, than Mark Richt or Manny Diaz. And I think I just have this feeling there'll be a turnaround. And again, some of that's heart. I understand. But Van Dyke's a real deal. And I do think this team is, and that division is so weak. Who's going to beat? You tell me who's got a chance to win this division outside of maybe North Carolina, as Larry said, will get better. They got to replace their starting quarterback, though. They're going to score some points, but they're going to give up a bunch. Gene Chizik aside, the defense still needs a lot of work. Virginia Tech with new head coaches, programs that are floundering a little bit. I don't see them really being a threat. Duke and Georgia Tech are a mess. And Pittsburgh might be a wild card. They do lose Kenny Pickett, but they do get the kid from Slovis from USC. So maybe Pittsburgh can hang in there. But they also lost their best offensive player outside of Pickett and the wide receiver that went to USC, whose name's escaping me. Oklahoma State, but I left them out because you hate, and there must be more to this, but I'm guessing you hate my boy Gundy because I think he's a great coach. Another guy I back up all the guys with great hair like myself. Lane Kiffin, Gundy, just kidding. Notre Dame doesn't make it in because they lost to Cincinnati. Last year, yes, I agree. Absolutely. There was no way they could put Notre Dame in over Cincinnati having lost to them. Although, it wouldn't be the first time that this committee has done something crazy, by the way. Money does not equate to a better team. Well, it does in college football because we also know that putting money into facilities, which, Miami has earmarked many millions of dollars to their facilities. Now, their biggest drawback in Miami, in my mind, is playing football games off campus. And not just off campus, but all the way in Coral Gables, which is like forever away from Miami. There's no kids there. There's no student presence there like you have at other college games. And money does equate to better teams a lot of times. Not always. But if you can pay for better facilities, listen, how do you think UCF, Central Florida, has really gotten to where they've gotten this program to, where they're now going to be next year a Big 12 team? Because they've got some of the best facilities in college football. And you know how they got those facilities? Money from boosters. That's how you build a program. So don't tell me money doesn't create a great program. Oklahoma State became a perennial contender with Mike Gundy, the coach, and T-Bone Pickens money, booster money, building everything in sight in Oklahoma State. So money matters. You need good players and good coaches, but, obviously money brings them in too. Coaches we know about, and, players now are getting paid as well, as they shouldn't, but that's a different story. Michigan shot their load in her second tier. I kind of think Michigan's going to take a step back, as we talked about last week, Rick, but can't count them out. Look at a one-loss team in the Big Ten, depending. Again, what matters, and John kind of pointed it out before, it's where that one loss comes in the season, how you lose it, and what you do after. If you go undefeated and your one loss is in the championship game, it's hard to get into the playoff unless you're Ohio State or you're Alabama or you're Georgia, and you go into the SEC or the Big Ten championship game undefeated. Maybe a Big 12 Oklahoma could do it. Go undefeated, lose in their championship game, and then still get an invite. But it's very hard to do, and it all comes down to circumstances and when it is. We can't just say arbitrarily every one loss team will get in, right? Or have a shot to get in. I mean, if Miami loses to Bethune-Cookman in week 1, and that's the only loss they have all year, they're not. I don't care if they beat Clemson; they're not getting in to the playoff, right? So it depends on who it's to, how you do it, and when it happens is also important. John Gundy talked smack about how his team would have beaten LSU. I knew you had a axe to grind here. Gundy talked smack about how his team would have beaten LSU in 2011, which is such nonsense, and it's offensively stupid. I hate Gundy because we would have boat races with them. I'm not sure we would have. I know that I'm missing something there, John. Oh, there we go. Oh, boat raced them. I get you. Listen, I like Gundy. I can't remember back to 2011 what the circumstances were. LSU had a lot of really good teams that underperformed. Did you? Let me ask you a question, John. Answer it honestly. I know you will because you're brutally honest. SEC elitist. Did you like the Mad Hatter? Was he a good coach? Did he have teams that should have won more? Are you working under the assumption that LSU should be competing with the Alabamas and the Georgias every single season, or they can have magical seasons like they had? They did have a national championship under Les Miles, right? They did have a national championship season under Nick Saban. They did have a national championship season under Ed Orgeron. But once a decade. What's realistic at LSU? Wow, they program season different sport human for college to NFL. Wow, they program season different sport human. I'm not sure what you're getting at there, Augustine. Help me out, buddy. I need a little clarification on what you're trying to get at there. Hated Miles. There you go. From the second we hired him. And you know what? He stayed there an awful long time. Won a lot of games. So I'm going to assume you think they should have won more big games than they did under Les Miles. Who preceded Les Miles? Was it Saban? Did Miles take over Saban? It can't go back that far, can it? Maybe it does. Time flies, man. I don't know. I like the guys with the good hair. Gundy, Kiffin. I found a way. It's funny. I usually get my button pushed here. I found a way to push John DeLon's buttons, it looks like. The Mad Hatter went out there to Kansas. I really thought he was going to find a way to maybe make Kansas relevant, at least, competitive once in a while. And it just didn't work out. It was a nightmare out there for Kansas. John's on fire tonight. LSU's a team that can build its roster to peak highly if they recruit properly. But that's not really what I asked. That's what they've done. And they've done exactly that. They have built a roster over time and then, peaked at national championship level, let's say 3 times is it 3 times? 3 times. Did they win they won a national championship under Les Miles? No? Pretty sure they did. So let's say 3 times in 30 years, right? That sound right, John? Every 3 to 5 years. Peak highly, but not national championship high. Let's see what I can find here. Hang on. Talk amongst yourselves. See what I got here. I got the honey badger when I put in LSU history, right? Give me a, see what I can find here. LSU Fighting Tigers year by year. I don't know how we got this show about LSU tonight, but good job, John. I'm really giving you your money's worth tonight because you've been unable to get your comments through on Facebook or on from YouTube. 6 and 7, 2019 national championships. Also, they did not win under Les Miles. Went to a lot of BCS championship. There you go. Les Miles. Win. Then they lost with Les Miles. And they won a championship. When was, Jesus, how far back was Nick Saban there? How come they don't say, well, what year did they share the, oh, there it is, Sugar Bowl. They don't say national championship. Wasn't 2003 the year that they had a split national championship? Or am I totally misreading that, John? I want to look at 2011 now that I'm here. 13-1. All right, that's the year they lost the national championship, I'm assuming, to Notre Dame. 3 times since 2003. There you go. Well, all right, 3 times. I said once every 10 years, so that's once every 6 years. Well, you're right. 18 years. That's once every 6 years. That's not bad. Yes, national champion. You know what? I think 3 to 5 is a little high, though, right? Augustine's, wow. Oh, I can't remember who Augustine said he rooted for now. Can't remember who you were telling me. Saban was there from 2000 to 2004, and he did win, correct, in that 13-1 season where they won the Sugar Bowl. Because for whatever reason, a Football Reference isn't giving them a national championship that season. I don't know why. Let's just click on this season, see who. Oh, I don't want that. I want second in the final AP poll. They did not win. I bet you they split the polls, though, right? USC, LSU. If I'm not mistaken, they were voted. That's the AP poll. They probably won the coaches poll that year, which apparently the Football Reference is not going to recognize. How do I say it? Augustine? I apologize for saying your name wrong, Augustine. I'm not very good. As Rick Sherlock and Kenny Gifford and some of my other Perth alum will say, I have trouble sometimes with names. I'm the Norm Crosby, which you'll probably not get. So so I'm going to say, I won't call you Augustine anymore. I'm going to say Augustine. And I hope that's right. Because I do want to pronounce your name right. I got John DeLong's name right the first time. Yeah, there you go. AP gave it to USC. So it's funny because the Football Reference doesn't even recognize, obviously, the coaches poll because they do not even designate them as co-national championships, which is baloney. So that's good to know. I certainly don't mean any harm. If you've noticed, one of the reasons I take DJU for the Clemson quarterback is because I won't even attempt to say his name. Well, this show's flown by. You guys have done a great job tonight of keeping the show going, as always. I didn't even get into a lot of what I was going to talk about. I wanted to talk about the Group of 6 preview, which I guess we'll get into next week. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Tell me what else you guys got on your mind here. So, and give me a yes or a no when I say Augustine. Am I right then? I'm funny and silly, more friendship personally. But you see, LSU has a 2003 Crystal Trophy, and those West Coast sissies, otherwise known as USC, don't have a. Look at that was a great USC team. You cannot tell me those USC teams were not very, 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 very good. I know it's hard for you guys in the SEC to kind of see greatness outside of the Southeast. But you're going to have to start because you're going to have teams in the Southwest, which you already do, I guess. Actually, Jen, it's a good question for you. I say the Big Ten and the SEC are not done expanding. That in another year or 2 years, whatever it might be, we're going to see another round of this. And I can see Clemson in the SEC. I could see, well, the two predictions I made about the best teams of the ACC, I can see Clemson going to the SEC, Miami going to the Big Ten. I'm really curious about what you see, and I don't know if we got enough time. We only got 4 minutes left, but I'd love to get you real quick, and we'll talk more about it. Oh, now I got to look. Oh, you're going to make me look. Now I got to know who LSU lost to that year. While I'm looking this up, John, you tell me who you see the SEC bringing in the next round. I see Clemson. I see maybe an NC State, maybe a Virginia. All right, where's the? How come we don't have the? How come I can't have scheduling results? I want to see who they lost to. If you're gonna rip, they lost at home to Florida 19-7. And what was Florida's record that year? 8-5. Just saying. I mean, that's not exactly losing to, Alabama. Just saying. I am curious, John, who you think that, and we can bring this up later on. Because we probably don't have enough time tonight. We only got a couple of minutes left. Who you see them going after next? We talked a lot about this, and we'll have to talk more about it. But you may have been commenting. It's been a couple of weeks since we really dove into the whole realignment thing. And I'm really curious where you see the SEC going next, because it's not done. ACC, teams that could go to the SEC, Clemson's a good fit. Wake Forest, no. Wake Forest probably going to end up like in whatever the Big 12 becomes. Maybe North Carolina. I think North Carolina and Miami likely are going to end up in the Big 10. I can see Virginia maybe being an SEC. And John's not commenting. I think I chased him away. No, not yet. We'll give you another shot, John. And Augustine, I hope that's right. And I didn't get a yes or a no from you on that. So again, I do want to, even though I know you're not mad, I do want to get people's names right when I can. If it's people, it's not on my show. What do I care? Let's see what you got, John. Clemson, Carolina, yes. I don't see Miami going to the SEC. Miami profile's perfect for the Big Ten. Big Ten's going from California to New Jersey now. I know the Big Ten wants to go south, and Miami academically probably matches up better in the Big Ten. And that's not a knock on the SEC. Those schools are all good. But I think academically, I think Miami fits better in the Big Ten. Maybe North Carolina too. But I do see Clemson and Virginia certainly as potential candidates. It's okay. I'm guessing I'm saying it wrong still. What I'm gonna do is copy your name, and I'm gonna go to my I got this little app on Google that tries to help me pronounce names. So again, I apologize. So anyway, guys, listen, What a great night tonight. You guys have been fabulous. As always, we welcome our new viewers. We welcome our old ones, John, Augustin. Send me a message on TGI Sports Talk. I want to figure out how to do it. Rick, Sherlock, Kenny, Carlos, the Mad New Yorker. You're nuts, but love your participation for sure. Who else did I forget here tonight? Whoever else I missed, I apologize. I think I got everybody. If I missed anybody else who commented, my thanks to Larry Sorensen as always. Great job, guys. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talks. College Football Huddle. Have a great night. Have a great one.